Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another modelling review. Today we'll be doing a vintage kit. I've been smacking this guy around for a while and do enjoy them, but they are a tad of a slow process. The GM Cannon featuring in Zeta Gundam. Now the artwork and some of the recommended painting guides are very funky, but the red or the extreme colours does require quite a bit of work. So I've always intended this to be a weathering project. Got to love the recommendation of painting on the runners before assembling. We have 3 bright red runners, or no polycaps, and beautifully water slide decals. The build itself seems simple enough with the instructions clearly laid out across 2 pages. A bit of a heads up about these old 1980 non-polycapped non-snap kits. Each piece needs to be glued, fundamental amount of cleaning up, and each major component piece does have a very nasty seam line. There's a process of gluing, filling the seam line, and waiting 24 hours until the putty can be removed, sanded, and we have a smooth sufficient surface to glue the next piece on. This is easier than assembling the whole thing, putting the whole thing, and just having hell trying to sand it at a later date. A very long-winded process, but normally rewarded with quite a nice finish. Unfortunately, this is not the only challenge to this style of, or vintage of kits. Once the seam lines are filled, they've got a habit of sagging or creating gaps where the putty has been applied due to shrinkage or plastic movements. Normally a process is required of priming the whole surface and re-going over with putty, sanding back and priming maybe a second or third time. Previous tutorial I recommend Squadron, as you don't have to repeat these steps as often as you would with a more heavily based solvent putty such as Tamiya. Painting is also a third obstacle. There's a lot of ways to get around this. I was able to airbrush the primer and the yellow. The rest was hand painted using my hand painting technique. This requires a lot of layers and a little precision work not to overlap or go out of lines of the colour painting. This would require more going over. Very labour intensive. Normally I would apply magnets, making the model being able to be pulled apart and giving it an element of colour separation. Masking is also an option, though I choose not to do that as it's not my idea of a good time unless the model absolutely needs it. So I went through many layers of paint, achieving one of the orange looks. Unfortunately, these Ronald McDonald colours wasn't exactly working out, too cartoonish. So many layers of clear paints, washes, Citadel inks used as filters, thinned down enamels, and a healthy dose of shellac gave us a more golden colour, followed by a heavy filter of a senpai colour. This made for a very nice dirty look. In conjunction with the very cool water slide decals that came with the kit and the colour scheme, I organised Samuel Decals to print some really cool insignias I downloaded off the internet and put together an interesting scheme. A very thick coat of enamel gloss was applied, followed by some basic inking, lots of matte clear coats applied, and a touch of pigment weathering. Unfortunately, during the build, I did have a little accident with seam splitting, lots of setbacks, shelving it quite a few times, and when finally going to the hassle of hand painting it, hating the red and yellow look, forgetting that I was going to play around with the colour filtering further. In past, when I did a lot of hand painting, I used to enjoy filtering my models and putting very heavy washes for very dirty looks. Unfortunately, not being an airbrush person, weathering was a bit cheesy as I didn't know how to dull down the gloss, and some of my very original kits do look like candied apples per se, or that was the major criticism they used to get. It was really refreshing having a go at this kit and going to a much older style of modelling that I used to do on an old kit. In interrupting this, I'd like to report that the lighting has been worked out for the photo booth, and everything is looking quite snazzy outside of the blue curtain. All in all, I gotta say, revisiting definitely an old style of modelling. I'm very happy to see where the standard is sitting today. I always do love my old kits, and brushing up those very funky proportions and details for something that can stand with the high grades is a tad of a challenge, though definitely very enjoyable. This is not an original 80s kit, definitely a re-release job, but we're glad to have gotten my fingers on it. Definitely a long build, tested my patience, but in the end, fun and happy with the results. Good to see my studio cat make an appearance, where she fits as she sits, and I don't know how she fit her fat ass in this tiny box. Regardless, thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, I was in a rut with two very old kits that haven't been moved much for a good 6 years, another one a good year, but definitely back in the swing of things. Stay tuned for more modelling videos, tutorials, and other interesting weekly content on this channel. Catch you guys later.